J.O. Morgan lives in border country up in Scotland, not far from Galashiels. And when I knew that about his work, it illuminated a lot of his work, because it seems to me that his work inhabits a kind of border country. The great thing about all our poets this time is that a lot of them are experimenting with different forms. When you read the books, a lot of them are writing prose, a lot of them are having little tiny prose poems or longer prose sequences. What J.O. Morgan does is he creates this long sequence of voices. I wrote down, actually, it was built round overhearings, but in fact, the more you read them, the more you realise that actually they're underhearings. They're underhearings from border country. They're voices that keep coming back. They're voices that seem self-contained. They're voices that if you wanted to, you could read from beginning to end, but if you wanted to as well, you could dip into. It's a mosaic, it's a collage, and it makes you want to know about each one of the tiny narratives, and they do sometimes link up, but then the more you read it, and I've read this so many times, you realize that actually the collage, the mosaic, the fragmentation is the point. And the point of this, I think, is that it's making a statement about how we think and how we receive and how we react to language. So please welcome J.O. Morgan.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to read 3 sections from this work, 2 long-ish either end and a smallish piece in the middle. And the first of these is, none of them have titles, so I'll give a little explanation. The first of these is from the perspective of a dove breeder and concerning one of the drawbacks of such a pastime. Doves make fickle pets, slippery white and soft in their cooing. They will not care for the cot you've built, if one better can be found elsewhere. Those that stay when the net comes off will regard you only as a source of seed. Shake the cup in early morning, and their splay of tickering wings is soon all around you. Loose the grain to the grass, and you'll soon lose all sense of relevance. When they circle the house, following a storm, white crosses cut against the blue-gray clouds, and when they tumble, like paper, like falling sheets of crumpled propaganda, as though for a moment forgetting how to fly, only then to pull up in a sudden tree-skimming dip to soar and flap and ticker once more. It isn't done with any thought of you. To them, you are merely an opportunistic observer. So, when I caught sight of the flutter and struggle at the dark end of the garden, and realized, slowly, that the wobble of mottled brown on snowy white was a sparrowhawk balanced on the body of the dove it had caught, there was no love lost. The dove was already gone. I reached for my binoculars, zoomed to see the yellow beak dig in through the white and tug the red elastic out, the bright, unblinking circles of the hawk's eyes, leveling as it choked back the meat, for anyone who might approach to challenge for its kill. Yet when the gripped white wings splayed suddenly upward and struck with all their dying force against the non-weight of the hawk, I, who was out and running down the lawn, my arms flapping, frantic to make myself seem like any sort of threat. The sparrowhawk had not the strength to lift back up what it had just brought down and only just begun to eat. It tried to rise, and with it, briefly, rose the dove, like a parcel hanging limp beneath, like how a child, in refusing to be lifted, magnifies its weight through stubbornness. But the garden was short, and I was already too close, and so the hawk took off alone as I knelt to place both hands around the dove to calm its redoubled terror, its new-made efforts and striving just to get away from me. With the deep red hole right through the downy white of its breast, and all its heaving innards visible, there was no hope. I'd started my attempted rescue far too late. And as I rested the bird upon the wood stump, one hand holding closed its wings, its russet eye still could not look at me with anything other than panic and unblinkered fear as, wincing to the force required, I brought the hammer down. This next piece I've chosen for having recently lost someone who was very dear to me. It seemed appropriate to be able to read this in their absence. It's like two boats whose courses bump and after, for a time, run parallel. And when the vessels connect, their timbers mesh, in part are joined. And when again they split, some aspect of the other is retained, with what they had together gained, unequal to those aspects now torn out. There are no accidents. All shipping is forever kept afloat on the same wide stretch of water. The force is released when such bodies collide, being relative not to size, but to the energy suppressed. The new-made holes providing no proof of ever having been so close, where any fool may smash two things together in order to look at the bits, whilst other fools are left to remake what was from all that now remains. Lastly, this piece is from the perspective of a child, now grown up, reflecting on one of the more peculiar aspects of their upbringing. Our father used to make up names for trees, for birds, for insects, anything he did not know the name of. He'd shape a new name on the spot. We lapped it all up, knowing no better, made him proud. The truth of the matter found us out soon enough. Teachers corrected us, children would laugh at us, mother just frowned. We had to admit to ourselves something was not right. We looked through books, we supposed some species must at least be similar. But we recognized too many pictures coupled with names we did not. How many of those names we knew were never names at all? We chose not to confront him. On walks, when spouting his usual nonsense, we nodded. Oh yes, is it really? How queer. When later he quizzed us, we told him we couldn't remember. He ceased his tuition with our loss of interest. Now, all those made-up names, once known, have faded. And our father, ever proud, even that which he thought he had has been taken away. We see him stroll through the garden, gazing up into the trees, or after darting birds, or stooped over insects with wonder as though he has never encountered anything quite like it. We see his lips open, tighten to the start of a well-shaped name, then relax, as though having puckered for a kiss where no kiss was to be had. When he comes in, face aglow, so we ask, what what was it you saw? And he smiles, like he's known all along how we knew. So he says nothing, just drifts away. As though we are strangers, he has declined to engage in conversation. Thank you.